All right. Welcome, everyone. My name is Rock, and this is episode number 4 of the Actions on the Objective podcast. On this show, I talk with other combat vets, and we discuss their experiences inside the battle space. We cover everything from the mundane to kinetic engagements with the enemy. And our guest today inside the Objective Rally Point is Nasirullah John Safi. John served as an interpreter to U.S. forces in Afghanistan for 8 years. During that time, he has been involved in countless operations and engagements, some of those being told on films such as the Battle of Kamdesh, which is told in the movie The Outpost. And while working as an interpreter for our unit during my last deployment to Afghanistan, some of those engagements were captured on 2 different documentary films, one being The Hornets Nest, the other one is called No Greater Love. John is also an accomplished author of 2 different books. The first one titled Get the Terp Up Here, War as an Interpreter to U.S. Forces in Afghanistan, and the other one titled Indispensable. And today, he's going to tell us about his actions on the objective. So welcome to the show, brother, and thank you for taking the time to do this.
Oh, thank you. Thank you so much for having me.
You got a really interesting story, so I'm just going to get right into it. And I really wanted to have you on because, you know, we always hear about the U.S. soldiers in combat and Iraq, Afghanistan, things like that. We rarely hear about guys like you, local nationals, who are working with us, and you're right there with us. You're every engagement. You're in it, just the same as everyone else. But you're also fighting for your own country, and I think that gets missed a lot. You know, your guys' story does not get told.
Well, again, thank you so much for having me. It's such a pleasure to share my story and share about my brothers and sisters in arms that I had the highest honor working with them. As you mentioned, that some of those battles are depicted in movies and documentaries. And so it was such an honor working with those incredible people. And yes, a lot of times our stories are being untold. There is less focus on stuff that the interpreters have done during the war on terror. But my story, I was very young when I started working as an interpreter for the U.S. military. So I was only 15, probably younger when I started working as an interpreter for the U.S. military for more than 8 years. And I spent those 8 years on the combat. I was always out there on the front line, helping and supporting my brothers and sisters in arms. Yeah. But at the same time, I was supporting my country and my countrymen and women who were brutally tortured by the Taliban, by the bad guys, by the tourists. And that was the least I could do to help my countrymen and women, as well as the mission in Operation Enduring Freedom of Afghanistan that we endorsed back in 2001 with our open arms and hearts.
Yeah, and that's the other thing. You started working as an interpreter at the age of 15. That is just insane. But so let's go back to the beginning. Just describe a little bit, what was life like growing up in Afghanistan under the Taliban regime before the war started?
What life looks like under the Taliban regime or growing up under the Taliban regime, it was pretty traumatic. It was pretty bad. We had to struggle pretty much with everything. We had no rights. Watching my dad and my older siblings go into prison for no reason. So it was pretty torturing, and it was very violent on a daily basis. So it was not a normal life. There was always something, and we knew there was something coming the next day or the next morning. It was pretty chaotic. It was pretty hard. It was pretty traumatizing, and those are the things that I grew up with, and those are the traumas that still haunt me. So it was pretty bad. It was pretty bad. I watched my father went into prison for no reason, and watched him being beaten and traumatized while I was a little kid, crying, and that was the only thing I could do. So it was pretty bad.
Yeah, absolutely. How did you learn English? Did you learn that in school?
So where I grew up, where I was born, it was a tiny village deep in the Hindu Kush Mountains, a place it was mostly dominated by religious extremists and people who did not like, or like people uh, that you couldn't talk to them about English, because English considered was they never use the term like in non-Muslim, but they usually says like this is an infidel language and you can't talk or you can't learn. So English was not in our school where I went to school. I struggled. I had to, I was doing everything. My family was doing everything to find somebody. But where I grew up, there was not a single person who could speak English that I knew of or my family knew of. But after a little while, I was able to find somebody in a different town, and we agreed that he was willing to teach me a little bit. But we had some conditions, and he created some conditions. And one of those conditions was that I wouldn't be talking to anybody. I wouldn't be telling anybody that it was teaching me, because it was pretty bad. The entire region was kind of like I was watching American soldiers were coming and patrolling, but they were there just for a few hours, and after that, it was all the bad guys and people who were Taliban's apologists or sympathizers. So people were so scared, and we couldn't do any, like we couldn't take English classes in school, or there was not such classes that I could take. But I did take some classes with this guy. He was a former. He was working at Forum, and I was helping him after school, and he would teach me a few words. And it took me a little while, and then I still couldn't talk to American soldiers. My English was not strong enough, and I was scared, and I thought I would put my family, I would put him in danger if I talk, because the Taliban could have easily label you and says like, oh, you work for the Americans because you just talked to American soldiers in town, and you were telling them about us, and they could have come after you and kill you.
Yeah, that
And that's
happens quite a
exactly
bit.
Yes, and that's exactly what happened in 2007. One of the families were brutally murdered. One of my uh, friends, my classmates, who was killed too. He was the family members, and after that, we decided to relocate and move to a different state, a different province, and that's when we ended up going to Jalalabad. And when we went to Jalalabad, I started taking some more English classes. Life was not easy; it was pretty hard, and I wasn't able to afford to pay our tuition, and neither my family could afford to do that. But I know we did everything, and I did everything to learn English, taking some classes when some courses when I went to Jalalabad. And at the end of 2008, I was able to speak and talk a little bit, and uh, I was able to interpret. So I got the job as an interpreter, and then I went back to Kona Province working at Monty.
Okay, so yeah, so after you got the job as an interpreter, you came to Combat Outpost Monty. Who was the first unit you worked with? Was it 10th Mountain or 173rd or?
Was 10th Mountain, out from Fort Drum.
Okay. Yeah, so once you started working, yeah, kind of just go through that.
Uh, yeah, when I started working at Money, can you hear me?
Yep, yep.
Yeah, so when I ended up going back to the same province where I was born, I was kind of happy to go back, but because I didn't know the risk, I didn't know the danger working as an interpreter. At the beginning, I was very excited, but at the same time, I was still struggling to learn English language. I could speak a little bit, but it was very hard to understand American soldiers and the accents and slangs that they had, or the military terminology or the military language that
Yeah.
they spoke. It was a struggle, to be honest with you. And when I ended up going to Combat Outpost Monty and started working for 10th Mountain, um, I met some friends, and I was doing everything I could to improve my English. And to be honest, I could have get fired because my English was not at that level, and I was pretty young too. But I met some incredible people in my life, and one of those people was our platoon sergeant and our platoon leader. Our platoon sergeant was his name was Kevin Devine, and he served in the army for 30 years, and he just recently got out. So he said, "We're not going to send you back home. We're not going to send you back to the company which send you here. We're going to teach you. If you don't know, we're going to teach you. We're here, and I'm here. I'm going to tell everybody that they're going to help you learn English." So I was very excited learning English and picking up, different words every day. And but the risk, I never thought about the risk till I got shot myself, and start thinking about like the bad guys, the Taliban went after my family, and I thought like, wow, this is very dangerous. It's very risky.
Was it during that time when you were with your first unit that Taliban went after your family?
So right after that, yes, I got shot in 2009. We went to Burjumatal, but I was constantly receiving death threats and letters, and from bad guys from the Taliban, and they were saying that they were going after my family. My family was not in Kunduz province where I was working at, and they were trying to find them where they were. And it took them a little while to finally to finally find my family and my family members, and they did go after him.
Okay. The day that you got shot, talk about that a little bit.
Burjumatal is one of the districts in Nuristan province.
Mm-hmm.
It was captured and then taken and ran over by the Taliban. It was a tiny district deep in the Hindu Kush mountains. So we were the closest. We were at Combat Outpost Mountain. We were called to go in, and the operation was planned for 72 hours, and it turned out to be for more than a month. And that's we spent more than a month out there. So when we got there, the Taliban were still there. The district center was still in the hands of Taliban. They were not in the district center, but they were in the parameters. They were in the nearby mountains and in buildings. So we got there. It was pretty. I mean, it was pretty crazy. Basically, I heard people saying it was a living killing. It was. We were out on patrol. We were walking up into the mountain where we wanted to set up an observation post, sort of because the bad guys were using snipers and they were coming from different directions. So we wanted to see where they were coming from, and that's where we got into an ambush. One of the soldiers got shot and killed, and I survived. I received a shrapnel on my right arm, and the scar's still there, and it's kind of serves the that's that permanent reminder of the war on terror.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And yeah, for those who don't know, Kotmanti, Kunar, Nuristan, I mean, constant kinetic engagements there. Yeah, I mean, it's a rough place to be in Afghanistan.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, one of the deadliest places in Afghanistan, the people talking about southern Afghanistan, people talk about Helmand and Kandahar, but I will say Combat Outpost Mine was one of the deadliest too, like Krangal Valley or other like Page Valleys, because the terrain was totally different. I had been to Kandahar, I'd been to Helmand province. The terrain was totally different, and Combat Outpost Monty was in the middle of high mountains, those Hindu Kush mountains, and the sooner you would leave the wire, there was a huge possibility that it will get into fight, or you would hit by a roadside bomb. The terrain was kind of built for enemy ambushes.
Yeah, that terrain over there is unforgiving, to say the least. Yeah, I don't miss that
Yeah.
place.
I know nobody like it just like when we went to Nuristan province, and like I said, we were supposed to be there for 72 hours, but it turned out that we spent more than a month. And my family believed that I was dead because I lied to my family. I told them that I was going to Bagram. And they knew what was going on in Nuristan province. It was the headlines. Everybody was talking about Nuristan province, and everybody was talking about how bad it was out there. And I told them that I was going to Bagram because I didn't want my mom to stress out about me more, because she was constantly worrying and stressing out about me. She was sick. Like, I kind of like blame myself for that, because I put her in so much stress that she got so sick, and then she never healed from that depression and stress that she had about me. So I lied to them. I said I'm going to Bagram and I'll be back in 3 days. And when I was gone for more than a month, they assumed that I was dead because there was no cell phone service when we got to Nuristan province. So I had no contact with them for more than a month. And they believed that something happened, whether I was at Combat Outpost Monte or I went to Bagram, and then something happened to me. So they had a whole month living in a hill.
Wow. Yeah.
Yeah.
And the Taliban they ended up getting to some of your family members, correct?
Yes, that is correct. In 2011, my oldest brother was hit by ID, and he he was seriously injured. We thought he was done. I didn't know. They didn't tell me because they were always scared for me too. And they said if they told me, I would just leave and visit them at the hospitals, which was not safe for me because they were coming after me so badly. I got letters and I got phone calls from the bad guys saying that if I ever get caught, they will cut me into pieces. And I'm the biggest traitors and I'm the biggest infidel because I'm supporting American soldiers. My brother was seriously wounded. He still carries more than 20 shrapnels in his body, his whole body. You can see those scars. And I mean, he healed from those scars, the visible scars, but he never healed from the trauma. He suffers so badly. So till today, like he suffers from trauma, and also the pain that he lives with on a daily basis. And after that, they went after my brother-in-law and his son, who was only 7, my nephew. They brutally murdered them. That was another horrific day in my life, and the day that I will never forget. And then they shot one of my sisters. So yeah,
Wow.
they went after my family badly. Yeah.
Yeah, that's insane. You've been through it, brother.
Yeah.
Um
Well, like I'm happy that I was able to help my brothers and sisters in arms. I was able to support work and find alongside them because they came and traveled thousands of miles to help support and construct our country. So that was the least I could do, and they traveled millions. I mean, thousands of miles and leave their loved ones behind to help and support us build schools, hospitals, clinics, roads, you name it. They came with the mission to bring peace, prosperity, and they did for the most part. And a lot of men, women, and kids and boys and girls were able to go to school. Millions of girls and boys were able to go to school. So this was the least that I could do to support or help them. I mean, that was the least we could do and I could do.
yeah, and the guys like you too, the interpreters and even some of the A&A soldiers and stuff, but primarily the interpreters and stuff that we work really close with. You guys do, when you're working with that unit, the interpreters and stuff become family.
Absolutely. I mean, we create this bond that's indestructible. It's a bond that you cannot think of. It's just a very strong bond that we create because you just become part of the family. And that's exactly what happened to me. And that's how I felt. I didn't feel any different than, losing my brother and sisters in arms than losing my own family members. That's how I felt. And when I started working, I was only 15, probably younger than 15. I spent my teenage years growing up with my brothers and sisters in arms in the combat zone, and I spent more time with them than I spent time with my own family because I was always gone working and helping them. So that bond is just indestructible. It's something like, I don't know, like this. The brotherhood is so strong, and it continues and it lasts forever because I'm still in contact with pretty much everybody that I work with, and we always talk, and they always reach out to check to see how I'm doing and how is my family doing. So this is the strongest brotherhood and the strongest bond that you can think of.
Absolutely. Were you working as an interpreter all the way up until you came over here to the States?
Yes, I was still working when I got and received the unexpected calls and emails from people and said that your paperwork is finally approved and you're about to out of the country. And yes, I was working till the very last day.
Okay. And how long have you been here now? And by the way, happy belated coming to the States too. I wanted to congratulate you on that.
Oh,
But
thank you so much. Thank you. Yeah, thank you.
So when did you come here? What year was that?
So when I applied for what they call a special immigrant visa back in 2000, right after 2009, and the unit that I was working with, 101st, NOSLEC or Gator Company, I don't know if you remember Captain Bellick and
Yep.
Captain Bellick. So I ended up working with Captain Bellick because before him, there was another captain. He got promoted to major, and then he got transferred to Fab Joyce. And Captain Bellick kind of helped. I mean, he did help me a lot do my paperwork. So when I applied for special immigrant visa, it took a long time. You know, it took a long time, but it finally got approved in 2016, and I was able to get out of the country. So I arrived here in 2016.
Wow. So from 2009 to 2016. Wow. That is a long time.
Yeah. It's a long time.
Now,
but I never lost my hope, and I never gave up. There was a hope that I will make it one day, and I will get out of the country because, you know, everyone believed that I truly deserves to be out of the country. I truly deserve to receive what they call a special immigrant visa. I got letters from back then Colonel Pappas, our battalion commander, and then I'm like, this is funny. I met him back in 2011 when he was a battalion commander, and then I met him again. I met him again in 2000. I believe it was 2013 or 14 when he was a brigade commander, and then now I heard he made it to general. So yeah, I met him a few times, and it's funny that he still remembers me. I met him in Chow Hall one day, and it's like, "Oh, John, how you doing?" It's like, "Sir," and he was our brigade commander.
Yeah,
he was back in 2014, I believe.
Yeah, Colonel Pappas was a great guy.
Yeah, Colonel Pappas, and I'm talking to Colonel Vowell.
Oh, Colonel Vowell. Colonel Vowell, also a great guy. Yeah.
Yeah, Colonel Pappas was a great guy too. I don't know. He came out to Monty. A few times when he was a brigade commander, and Colonel Vowell was a battalion commander. He ended up going to Dangam district. He spent a few days. Colonel Pappas spent a few days at Monty.
Yeah.
And then we went to Dangam district for a few hours. Yeah. So I think he's they're great people. I mean, great people.
Yeah. And so now you're here. And how about the rest of your family? Like, did any of your family members, were any of them able to get over here or no?
One of my brothers recently married. He married during the evacuation right after August of 2021.
Okay.
He also worked for the American troops, but the rest of the family is stuck in Afghanistan. And I'm doing my best to help them get out. It's really bad. But it's very, I don't know. I mean, it's kind of hard. There's not an actual help out there nowadays. That I'll be able to help my family get out, or at least one of my brothers who also worked for the American troops is still stuck in and been hiding in the country.
Now, when you talk to your family back home, do they say, like, how are things now that the U.S. Left and the Taliban has now regained control? How's life for them over there? Like,
well, it's funny if I say living in a prison probably much better, because you know that you live in a prison and you will get out at some point. You just serve your time and you will get out. And it's worse than that because everybody, psychologically, there in prison that they never know when they will get out. It is just a living hell for everybody. People are stuck, especially women are entrapped in four walls or in their houses. They're not allowed to leave. Girls are not allowed to go to school as they used to. Like I mentioned before, millions were able to go to school when the U.S.-led coalition started the war on terror back in 2001. Now girls are not allowed to go to school. People have no jobs. The starvation is so bad, and there's a huge possibility that thousands may die this winter because the winter is harsh in some places, and people have no food. There's nothing. There's no job. There's nothing right now, and people are so depressed. And their news comes out that people are dying, trying to get out of the country and go into to neighboring countries or Europe. It's very, very bad. It's very bad.
And you said your family members, they are currently working on trying to get out. I mean, they've applied and
they have applied and they've been trying to get out. Yes. Like I'm trying to help them. But the process is very complicated, and I hope they will get out before something bad happens to them, as it did in the past. I lost family members, and we still struggle with the trauma and in pain that it caused by people, the family members that I lost. So I don't want them to lose more and more, and I've been praying for them. So I hope they will get to safety soon.
yeah, I hope something works out sooner rather than later also.
Yeah, thanks.
So what do you got going on now?
So I go to school. I work for a nonprofit organization supporting refugees here in Oregon. That's where I live. And doing like book signing events and sharing story with people, and that's all I do. So life is quite busy nowadays. Going to different places, talking to people, and telling them about Afghanistan, and in my eyewitness accounts and first-hand information, and in stories of those battles and in firefightings that I was part of it. So that's what I've been doing.
Yeah, and I know you do stay busy. Like I said, I just saw you recently have been doing some book signing events. And that was the other thing. I wanted to see if you could just talk about your books. And I will also put a link in the description so people can go and purchase them as well.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, my first book, as you mentioned, the first book called "Get the Terp Up Here: War as an Interpreter to U.S. Forces in Afghanistan." And Terp stand for interpreters. And the reason we chose this title is I remember when I was working as an interpreter, and I heard soldiers like, "Hey, get the Terp up here!" Like if whatever they needed help, like it's like, "Get the Terp up here," and it's like, that's what we're being called, and that's why I named this book, my first book, "Get the Terp Up Here: War as an Interpreter to U.S. Forces," and it tells the story of my brothers and sisters in arms and the battles and firefighting that I was part of it. Some of those battles, like you said, are depicted in movies, and one of those movies is the Outpost and No Greater Love and the Hornets Nest, the documentaries, and I was there when all those happened. So I decided to write about my own story, and the way it started was that back then I was talking to people, and everyone would ask me like, "Yeah, tell us a little bit about your experience," and everyone, after like I was done, everyone like, "Why didn't you write this down? Why didn't you turn this into book?" And some even said like, "This could be a great movie. We should talk to people about it." So that's how I started. But I wasn't very sure that I would be able to write a book because it's a hard work.
Oh yeah.
I wouldn't say it's a hard work, but like growing up in a place where you weren't allowed to talk about English because it was an infidel language. Like, it was a language of infidels, or the word that used the kafir or kufar. I was like, my English was not strong enough. So I was like, how am I going to write a book? But I decided, and I reached out to my brothers and sisters in arms, the people that I serve with, the people that I love the most. And everyone, like, just like you and other folks, like, hey, we're here to help you. Just please write it down, send it to us, and we'll take care of it. And that's how it happened, and that's how it started. And I was able to publish my first book right after August of 2021. So August 15, 2021, I got my first book out on the 19th. So just like 4 days after August 15 of 2021. And recently, I was able to publish my second book. It's called Indispensable. It is kind of the continuation of my first book, but it is different. There are different stories. There's stories about No Slack. There's stories about different units that I work with. And then there's another one that I've been working on it for a little while, but life is busy. And I hope I get it done at some point. Yeah.
I'm sure you will, because you're definitely a hard worker.
Well, thank you.
So, yeah, I wish I had more questions, but to be honest, you kind of, without me even having to ask, really just kind of went in and kind of covered pretty much everything.
Oh, thank you. I mean, honestly, that
I feel like I'm not doing I feel like I'm not doing my job here by asking anything.
No, I mean, you did great, and you're doing great. I think I probably, because I've been doing this all over, like over and over again, and I kind of like, it was one question and you answer with yes or no, and then I think I go into details and descriptions, and there's no, there's no room for a next question. I think that could have been that is probably my fault too.
Oh no,
but you did great. You did great.
You could definitely tell you've done a lot of talking about this.
Yeah. No, I've done quite a like interviews. Yeah. But it's I always find it super interesting, and it makes me happy to share and talk with my fellow brothers and sisters in arms. I always, when I get something from people and they're somehow related to military, I feel so comfortable and I feel so honored to share about myself and to talk about things, because we understand and we feel the pain and suffering and in those hardships. And so I always find it very interesting to share my story with my fellow brothers and sisters. And I find it it makes me happy to say, like, it makes me really happy.
Yeah. There's definitely the shared experience, and a lot of bad days in that part of the world.
Yes, that is correct. Yeah.
We all have in common.
Yes.
So how'd you end up out in Oregon?
Well, when I made it to the state, I landed on the East Coast. So I was living in Massachusetts. I was living on the vineyard called Martha's Vineyard. And I ended up living with my very, very first military or soldier that I worked with, the person that I met at the very, very beginning. So I ended up living with his family on Martha's Vineyard for a couple of years. And then I decided to come out to meet one of my my brothers. I used to work with him. He was a military guy. I came out to visit him, and I had my round trip booked. I was ready to go back to Massachusetts. When I came out, he kind of like changed my mind, and I fell in love with this place. And so I never went back. Well, I went back to visit a few times, but I ended up staying here, and I'm still here. And I don't plan to leave anytime soon.
You think that's where you're gonna plant your roots and stay?
Yes, I think so, because I just some months ago I became a U.S. citizen, and not just a U.S. citizen, I feel like I'm an Oregonian, and that's what everybody that's what everybody says now. Like, I reach out to folks in different places, and they says like, "Oh, you're now Oregonian and you're forgetting about us." I said, "No, that's not true. I don't forget about you guys. I will never do." But I live out here, and I love it out here. It's beautiful. I don't know if you ever visited here, but Oregon is beautiful. I've been to so many places, but I think I like it out here a lot.
Yeah, no, I've never been to Oregon actually.
It's a beautiful state. You should come visit. It's just a beautiful state. It's not too cold. I mean, it's rainy. We get tons of rain. That's one of the things I will tell you about Oregon. It's just pretty nice. There's a lot of places to visit here, whether you like to hike or you like to go see some historical sites. We got pretty much everything here. Yeah, it's a beautiful state.
Yeah, that whole Pacific Northwest, Washington, Oregon. I've never made it out there. Yeah, maybe.
Yeah, you should.
Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, you're more than welcome, man. You have a place to stay. Let me know whenever, and you have a place to stay, man. You have your brother out here, and you have a home to stay. So, I'll be happy to receive you. I'll be happy to come meet you at the airport. And yeah, it's just beautiful. You should come out and visit. It's beautiful out here.
I just might have to do that sometime. And if you ever find yourself in Pennsylvania too, you always have a place to stay here also.
Absolutely, absolutely. I'm planning to visit the East Coast. I recently visited the vineyard, but I might go back to visit because I have lots of families and friends live on that side of the country. But yeah, that's the plan too. But I will definitely let you know when I head that way. But you're more than welcome to come out here if you ever decide to.
Well, hey, brother, I won't hold you up any longer. Enjoy the rest of your day.
Absolutely, yeah. Just thank you so much for having me again, man. This is such an honor to talk to one of my fellow brothers, man, one of my fellow veterans and my fellow combat veterans. I don't call myself veterans, but I have tons of respect for you guys.
You're
man.
just as much
Thank
a veteran as anyone else.
Thank you. Well, thank you so much for all you've done for our country, man. I appreciate all the sacrifices you and your family and the rest of the families made for our country, man. This is I can't think of a better word to appreciate you for all you guys have done and the sacrifices you guys made. So thank you and God bless you. You have a wonderful day.
All right, brother, you too. And if you like this episode, feel free to breach that like button, subscribe to the channel, and share the show with your friends. Don't forget, you can find this show on our YouTube channel and on Spotify. Thank you, everyone, for listening, and I'll see you on The Objective.